The note I left was simple. You forgot my birthday. I won't let you forget me. Petty? Maybe. But after 7 years of marriage, I deserved more than being excluded from my own house party. I'm Sonia, and this is how I finally stopped being the invisible backbone of the Dunn family empire. It started when I pulled into our driveway at 6 p.m., returning from a lonely dinner I treated myself to since no one had remembered my birthday. The first sign something was wrong was all the cars parked along our street. I recognized them all. Jake's mother's Mercedes, his sister Sophia's Range Rover, even his cousin's beat-up Volkswagen. Music drifted from our open windows, along with the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. My hands trembled as I turned off the ignition. Surely there had to be an explanation. Jake wouldn't throw a party on my birthday without me. Would he? I used my key to open the front door, and the noise hit me full force. Our living room was packed with Jake's family and friends, all holding drinks and chatting animatedly. A large banner hung across the fireplace. Congratulations on the Miller account, Jake. My husband stood in the center of it all, champagne glass raised, his mother Emerson's arm wrapped proudly around his shoulders. To my brilliant son, she was saying, who single-handedly landed the biggest client of the year. Single-handedly. Right. I had spent 3 months preparing that proposal, staying up until 2 a.m. most nights, researching every detail about Miller Industries while Jake played golf with his buddies. I had written every word of that presentation Jake had delivered. Sonia, Sophia spotted me first, her eyes widening. I didn't know you'd be here. The room fell quiet. Jake turned, his expression shifting from celebration to confusion. Honey, you're home early. I thought you had that thing tonight. That thing? I kept my voice steady. You mean my birthday dinner? Alone? Emerson's perfectly painted lips formed an O of false surprise. Oh dear, was that today? Jake, you should have said something. But Jake was already turning back to his guests, raising his glass again. Everyone, let's welcome my wife to the party. Come on, honey, grab a drink. We're celebrating. Jake, I said quietly, can we talk privately? He sighed, that familiar look of annoyance crossing his face. Not now, Sonia. We have guests. It'll just take a minute. I said not now. He snapped, then immediately softened his tone, aware of watching eyes. Just mingle, okay? We'll talk later. I stood there for a moment, watching him return to his admirers. 7 years of supporting him, of being the silent partner, of letting him take credit for my work. 7 years of his mother's subtle digs and his sister's two-faced friendship. 7 years of being invisible in my own home. I turned and walked upstairs, my heels clicking against the hardwood floors. In our bedroom, I pulled out my largest suitcase and began methodically packing my clothes. From my home office, I retrieved my laptop and the external hard drive containing all my work files, proposals, client lists, financial records, everything I had built for Jake's family business while letting him take the credit. The party continued downstairs, oblivious to my actions. I could hear Emerson's laugh, the same laugh she'd used when telling Jake he could do better than me at our wedding reception. My phone buzzed, a text from my friend Zuriel. Happy birthday. How's your day been? I typed back, can I stay with you for a while? Her response was immediate. Of course. Everything okay? It will be. I took one last look around the bedroom at the life I had let myself be pushed into the margins of. Then I picked up my suitcase, laptop bag, and purse. The party was in full swing as I walked down the stairs and straight out the front door. No one noticed. In my car, I took out a notepad and wrote my message. Simple, direct. 7 words that would make them remember me. I walked back to place it on the kitchen counter, where Jake would find it when the party was over. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of our house in my rearview mirror. Through the windows, I could see shadows of people celebrating, raising their glasses to Jake's success built on my invisible foundation. But I wasn't invisible anymore. I was leaving and I was taking that foundation with me. Let's see how well their house stands without it. My phone buzzed again, Zuriel sending her address. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about what you do to others, but what you do for yourself. And this was just the beginning. Zuriel's apartment felt like stepping into a different world. No pristine furniture chosen by my mother-in-law. No family photos of the perfect Dunn dynasty. Just comfortable chaos and the smell of coffee. Spill, Zuriel demanded, pushing a steaming mug into my hands. What happened? My phone buzzed for the 20th time. Jake again. I silenced it. They threw a party without me, on my birthday, to celebrate Jake's big account win. I took a sip of coffee, letting the warmth steady me. The account I basically handed to him on a silver platter. The Miller proposal? Zuriel's eyes widened. The one you've been killing yourself over for months? 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. I pulled out my laptop, opening the files I'd brought with me. Look at this. Every presentation, every spreadsheet, every market analysis, all done by me. Jake just had to show up and smile. Zuriel leaned over my shoulder, scrolling through the documents. Holy shit, Sonia. This is everything. The entire business infrastructure. Funny thing about being invisible, I said, managing a small smile. People forget you're there. They leave their passwords lying around. They don't notice when you're copying files or learning their systems. My phone lit up again, this time with a text from Sophia. Where are you? Jake is freaking out. Mom's saying you're just being dramatic. Of course she is, I muttered, showing Zuriel the message. What are you going to do? Zuriel asked, settling onto her couch. You can stay here as long as you need, but I need a plan, I finished. I opened another folder on my laptop, this one containing something I'd been working on secretly for months. Remember Theo, Jake's old rival from business school? The one who started his own consulting firm? Yeah, why? He's been trying to expand into our market sector. 2 weeks ago, he reached out to me. Apparently, he'd heard through the grapevine who really runs the Dunn family business. Zuriel sat up straighter. Are you saying what I think you're saying? My phone buzzed again, an email this time from Lauren, my assistant at work. Mrs. Dunn, is everything okay? Mr. Dunn came in looking for you. He seems upset. I quickly typed back, Lauren, I need you to trust me. Don't tell anyone, but I won't be coming back to the office. Would you be interested in a new opportunity? You're going to start your own business, Zuriel said. It wasn't a question. With Theo's backing and Lauren's help? I nodded. I'm done being the ghostwriter of my own life. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Through the peephole, I saw Jake, looking disheveled. Don't answer it, I whispered to Zuriel. Zuriel, Jake called out. I know Sonia's in there. Her car's outside. Baby, please, let's talk about this. Zuriel and I stayed silent, watching his shadow under the door. Fine, he shouted after a few minutes. Be childish, but we need those files, Sonia. The Miller presentation is next week, and you have all the data. I smiled grimly. Exactly. After Jake's footsteps faded, Zuriel turned to me. You really thought this through, didn't you? I've had 7 years to think it through. I opened my email and started composing a message to Theo. 7 years of watching Jake take credit for my work. 7 years of his mother treating me like an accessory. 7 years of being the silent partner in my own marriage. My phone lit up with Lauren's response. Whatever you're planning, I'm in. This place is chaos without you already. Perfect, I murmured. adding her to the email to Theo. You know they're going to fight back, Zuriel warned. Emerson won't let you just walk away with their business secrets. Let them try. I hit send on the email to Theo. I've got copies of every email where Jake took credit for my work, every meeting where he presented my ideas as his own, every client relationship I built while he played golf. And the Miller account? I closed my laptop with a satisfying click. Jake has exactly 6 days to either admit to Miller Industries that he can't do the presentation without me or try to fake his way through it and lose the biggest account of the year. Either way, I win. Zuriel raised her coffee mug in a toast to no longer being invisible. I clinked my mug against hers, feeling a surge of excitement replace the hurt and anger. To becoming unforgettable. My phone buzzed one final time. Theo's response, meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Let's talk about your future. For the first time since discovering the party, I felt myself truly smile. They wanted to celebrate Jake's success without me? Fine. Let's see how much success they have when the real architect of that success decides to build something of her own. Theo's office was everything the Dunn family business wasn't. Modern, open, and welcoming. No dark wood paneling or stuffy oil paintings of previous generations. Just clean lines and natural light. I have to admit, Theo said, leaning back in his chair. I've been waiting for this day. Jake never deserved the success you built for him. Lauren sat beside me, nervously adjusting her tablet. She'd arrived early, bringing with her a complete breakdown of our current client portfolio. The Miller presentation is in 5 days, I said, getting straight to business. Jake doesn't have access to the final documents, and trust me, he can't recreate them from memory. Theo's eyes sparkled. And you want to use that leverage. I want to build something of my own, I corrected him. The leverage is just a bonus. My phone buzzed, a text from Emerson. This childish behavior needs to stop. Come home and we can discuss your concerns, like adults. I showed the message to Lauren, who rolled her eyes. She called me this morning trying to get me to access your files. I told her I didn't have your passwords. But you do, I smiled. Of course I do, Lauren grinned back. I just don't have them for her. Theo spread out some papers on his desk. Here's what I'm proposing. We create a new consulting division under my company's umbrella. You'll have complete autonomy, your own team, and a significant equity stake. Lauren can come on as your operations manager. And Miller? I asked. We approach them directly. Show them who really developed their strategy. My phone rang. Jake this time. 4th call today. I declined it. He's getting desperate, Lauren noted. The Miller representatives have been calling all morning, asking for specific details about the implementation timeline. He keeps telling them you're under the weather. A new email popped up on my phone from Jake's lawyer. Subject line, cease and desist, confidential business information. Right on schedule, I muttered, opening the email. They're threatening legal action if I don't return all company documents and agree not to compete. Theo reached for the phone. May I? I handed it over, watching as he read the email, his smile growing wider. This is perfect, he said. They just admitted in writing that you possessed and created these materials. Makes it much easier to prove your contribution when we counter. Counter? Lauren asked. With evidence of intellectual property theft, I explained. Every time Jake presented my work as his own, he was essentially stealing it. I've documented everything. My phone buzzed again, Sophia this time. Mom's talking about calling the police. Please, Sonia, just come talk to us. The police? Lauren looked worried. Empty threat, Theo assured her. They won't involve law enforcement because they can't prove you didn't have authority to access those files. You were, after all, a key executive in the company. Not officially, I said bitterly. On paper, I was just Jake's wife who helped out sometimes, which makes their legal position even weaker, Theo pointed out. They can't claim you stole company secrets while also claiming you were just a housewife. A notification popped up on my laptop, an email from Miller Industries, requesting clarification on project leadership. Perfect timing, I smiled, opening the email. They're asking who will be handling their account going forward. Apparently, Jake's answers in their morning call weren't very convincing. What are you going to do? Lauren asked. I started typing. Dear Mr. Miller, I apologize for any confusion. As the architect of your proposed strategy, I want to inform you of some recent changes. They'll be furious, Lauren whispered. They already are, I replied, hitting send. Might as well give them a real reason. Theo stood up, walking to his office window. 5 years ago, Jake stole a major client from me, used inside information he got from a mutual friend. I lost millions. I remember, I said quietly. I'm the one who told him not to do it. And now, here we are. Theo turned back to us. Ready to sign the paperwork? I looked at Lauren, who nodded enthusiastically. Then at my phone, where messages from Jake, Emerson, and Sophia continued to pile up. Finally, at the contract Theo had prepared, offering me everything I'd earned but never received at the Dunn family business. One condition, I said, picking up the pen. We do this right. No shortcuts, no tricks, just better service, better strategies, and better leadership than they ever had. Of course, Theo agreed. The best revenge is massive success. As I signed my name, my phone lit up with a response from Miller Industries. Meeting requested to discuss transition of services. I looked at Lauren and Theo, my new team, and felt a surge of confidence. Shall we show them how it's really done? The answer was written in their matching smiles. The invisible woman was about to become impossible to ignore. Mrs. Miller is ready for you now, the receptionist announced, gesturing toward the corner office. 1 month had passed since I'd left Jake, and here I was, presenting to Miller Industries, this time under my own name. Lauren squeezed my arm supportively as we entered the office. Sonia, Mrs. Miller stood, extending her hand. I must say, your email certainly caught our attention, though not as much as your husband's. Interesting attempt at presenting your strategy last week. I kept my expression neutral. I apologize for any confusion during the transition. Confusion? Mrs. Miller laughed. The man couldn't explain basic concepts that were in his own proposal. That's when I knew something was wrong. She gestured to the chairs in front of her desk. Please sit. Tell me why I should trust you after this mess. I opened my laptop, pulling up the presentation I'd spent the last week refining. Because I'm going to show you exactly how I developed every aspect of this strategy, and then I'm going to improve it. 2 hours later, we walked out with a signed contract. Lauren was practically bouncing. Did you see her face when you broke down the market analysis? She couldn't believe Jake tried to pass that off as his work. My phone buzzed. A text from Zuriel. Emergency, come to my place now. What's wrong? I asked when we arrived at her apartment 20 minutes later. Zuriel pointed to her TV, where a local business news channel was running a story. Jake stood at a podium, Emerson by his side. Regret to announce that due to internal restructuring, Dunn Consulting will be scaling back operations temporarily, he was saying, looking haggard. We remain committed to our clients. They're losing accounts, Lauren whispered, scrolling through her phone. Not just Miller. 3 other major clients have jumped ship this week because Jake can't handle the workload without you, Zuriel added. And apparently, Emerson's attempts to step in are making things worse. My phone rang. Sophia. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. How could you do this to us? She demanded. Mom's talking about selling the beach house to keep the company afloat. I didn't do anything to you, Sophia. I just stopped doing everything for you. The Miller account was worth millions, and now they're gone, along with half our client base. They're gone because Jake couldn't deliver what he promised. I replied calmly. Maybe he should have thought about that before taking credit for my work all these years. Mom wants to sue you, Sophia warned. She's meeting with lawyers right now. Good luck with that. I ended the call, turning back to the TV where Jake was still speaking. Look at him, Lauren marveled. He really thought he could handle it all without you. He thought I would come crawling back, I corrected her. They all did. That's why they started with threats instead of apologies. My laptop pinged. An email from Theo. 3 more clients requesting meetings. Your reputation is spreading. How soon can you start expanding the team? Speaking of expanding, Lauren said, pulling out her tablet. Remember Thomas from accounting? He reached out, says he's tired of Emerson's micromanaging and wants to join us. I smiled. Set up a meeting. They're going to call it poaching, Zuriel warned. They can call it whatever they want. I'm not stopping anyone from staying with them. I'm just offering a better option. My phone buzzed again. An email from Emerson's lawyer, marked urgent. I opened it, reading aloud. Cease and desist all communication with Dunn Consulting clients and employees. Immediate legal action. Damages? Lauren snorted. They do realize most of those clients are reaching out to us, right? They're desperate, Zuriel observed. The company's been running on your work for so long, they don't know how to function without it. Another news alert popped up on my phone. Dunn Consulting stock drops 30% amid client exodus. You know what the funny thing is, I said, watching Jake's strained face on TV. All they had to do was appreciate me. One birthday remembered, one honest acknowledgement of my contributions. But they didn't, Lauren finished, and now they're learning the hard way. My phone lit up with a new message from Mrs. Miller. Excellent presentation today. Looking forward to working with the real brains behind the operation. I showed the message to Lauren and Zuriel, feeling a surge of pride. No more hiding in the shadows. No more letting others take credit for my success. To the real brains, Zuriel raised her coffee mug in a toast. Lauren raised hers, too. And to the Dunns finally getting exactly what they deserve. I joined their toast, watching Jake's press conference end on TV. He looked lost, overwhelmed. Exactly how he should have felt all those years he was presenting my work as his own. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others. Sometimes it's simply about claiming what was yours all along. The cafe was crowded, but I spotted Emerson immediately. She sat ramrod straight at a corner table, her designer handbag placed precisely in front of her. 2 months had aged her noticeably. Sonia, she said as I approached, thank you for meeting me. I sat down, noting the slight tremor in her perfectly manicured hands. You said it was important. It's about Jake, she began, then paused as the waiter approached. Just water, thank you. Americano for me, I said, then turned back to her. What about Jake? He's struggling. The business is falling apart. He's not sleeping, barely eating. She leaned forward. We need you back. You need me back, I corrected. There's a difference. I'm willing to offer you a formal position, Executive Vice President, with full credit for your work going forward. And, she swallowed hard, a public acknowledgement of your past contributions. My phone buzzed, Lauren sending our latest client acquisition numbers. I showed them to Emerson, watching her face fall. Your company has lost 60% of its value, I said quietly. Meanwhile, my division at Theo's firm has tripled in size. Why would I go back? Because it's your family, she snapped, then quickly composed herself. We're your family, Sonia. Family? I laughed. You've spent 7 years treating me like an unwanted house guest. You couldn't even remember my birthday. That was a mistake. No, I cut her off. A mistake is buying the wrong gift. What all of you did, was show me exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy. The waiter brought our drinks. I took a sip of my coffee, watching Emerson's carefully constructed facade crack. There's something else, she said finally. Something Jake doesn't know I found. She pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. Inside were printed emails, dozens of them, between Jake and his ex-girlfriend from 2 years ago. He was planning to leave you, Emerson said softly, but then you landed the Patterson account, and he realized how valuable you were to the business. My hands shook as I read the messages. Jake discussing divorce plans, calculating how to protect the company, his ex offering to help him get rid of the dead weight. Why are you showing me this? Because I stopped him, Emerson said. I convinced him that you were an asset we couldn't lose. I protected you. I stared at her, realization dawning. You protected the business, not me. You knew I was doing all the work, and you were afraid of losing that. I made a choice that benefited everyone. You made a choice to keep me in the dark, working for a husband who wanted to divorce me, while you all took credit for my success. I stood up, gathering the emails. Thank you for these. They'll make excellent evidence in the divorce proceedings. Divorce? Emerson paled. But I'm offering you everything you wanted. Recognition, power, your name on the door. No, I said, pulling out my phone to show her our company website. I already have my name on a door, one I built myself. My phone buzzed again. A message from Jake. Mom told me she's meeting you. Please come home. We can fix this. I showed Emerson the message. Does he know you're showing me these emails? She looked away. I'm doing what needs to be done to save our company. Your company, I corrected her, and you're not trying to save it. You're trying to save yourself. How many loans have you personally guaranteed? Her silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. I gathered my things. Thank you for the emails, Emerson, and for finally showing me the truth about my family. Wait, she called as I turned to leave. What are you going to do? I looked back at her, this woman who had orchestrated my imprisonment in a loveless marriage for the sake of profit. I'm going to do what you taught me to do, protect my interests. Outside, I called Lauren. Remember that expansion plan we discussed? Let's accelerate it and call our lawyer. I'm filing for divorce. Are you okay? She asked. I looked through the cafe window at Emerson, now frantically typing on her phone, probably warning Jake. I'm better than okay. I'm finally free. My phone lit up with another message, this one from Theo. Major investment firm wants to meet. They're impressed with our growth. I smiled, thinking of the emails in my bag. Sometimes the universe has a way of revealing truths at exactly the right moment. Emerson had tried to play her last card, but all she'd done was give me the final push I needed. Time to show them what the dead weight could really do. Jake was waiting outside my office building when I left work. 3 months since I'd last seen him, and he looked like he'd aged years. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt. We need to talk, he said, stepping forward, about the emails Mom showed you. There's nothing to talk about. I tried to walk past him, but he blocked my path. I never sent them, he blurted out. Those emails to Rebecca, I drafted them but never sent them. Mom found them in my deleted folder. I laughed, the sound harsh in the evening air. That's your defense? That you only thought about leaving me while taking credit for my work? I was scared, he admitted. You were becoming so essential to everything, and I felt redundant. Rebecca reached out at a weak moment. Mr. Dunn, Lauren's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, phone in hand. Should I call security? Jake raised his hands. No need, I just want 5 minutes. Please, Sonia. I nodded to Lauren. It's okay, I'll handle this. We walked to the small park across the street, the same park where we'd once planned our future during lunch breaks, before I became his ghostwriter instead of his partner. The company's failing, he said, sitting heavily on a bench. Mom's leveraged everything trying to keep it afloat. The beach house, her retirement fund. I know, Sophia told me. We had an offer this morning, hostile takeover. He ran his hands through his hair. They know we're vulnerable without you. My phone buzzed. Theo sending the latest market analysis. Our firm had just landed another major client, one that used to be Jake's. What do you want from me, Jake? Come back, he said quickly. Not as my wife if you don't want to, but as a full partner. 50-50 split. Your name on everything. Like the Miller presentation? I asked sharply. Or the Patterson account? Or any of the other deals you took credit for? I was wrong, he admitted. I got used to the praise, to being the golden boy. It was easier to let everyone think I was the genius. While I worked until midnight, missing dinners, events, my own life. I know, God, I know. He turned to face me. But I loved you, Sonia. I still do. I pulled out my phone, opening the photos I'd saved of his emails to Rebecca. Dead weight was the term you used. Holding you back from your true potential. I was an idiot. No, I cut him off. You were honest. For once in our marriage, those emails showed exactly what you thought of me. A notification popped up on my phone, the investment firm Theo had mentioned, confirming tomorrow's meeting. They were interested in backing our expansion into international markets. You're really doing it, aren't you? Jake said, noticing my small smile. Building your own empire? The difference is, I'm building it honestly. Every success, every failure, they're really mine. And ours were really yours too, he said quietly. All of them. I just took the applause. Lauren appeared at the park entrance, pointing at her watch. We had a client dinner in 30 minutes. I have to go. I stood up. The divorce papers are with your lawyer. Sign them, Jake. Let me go. And the company? Keep it. Or sell it. That's not my problem anymore. He grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. What about your clients? The ones who've known us for years? They knew me. I corrected him, pulling free. They just didn't know it was me. Now they do. Sonia, please. You want to know the saddest part? I interrupted. If you had just remembered my birthday, if any of you had, I might still be there, still working in the shadows. But you couldn't even give me that one day. I'll make it right, he promised. Whatever it takes. You already did, I said, walking away. You showed me exactly what I'm worth, by showing me what you're worth without me. Lauren met me at the park entrance. Everything okay? I looked back at Jake, still sitting on the bench, head in his hands. The golden boy who'd built his success on my invisible foundation. Now he knew what it felt like to be the invisible one. Everything's perfect, I replied. What time is the dinner? 7, and Theo called. The investment firm's bringing their full board tomorrow. They're very interested in your vision for international expansion. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Sophia. Jake told me about the takeover offer. Please help us. I deleted it without responding. They'd had 7 years of my help. Now it was time to help myself. Let's go show them what visible leadership looks like, I said to Lauren, walking toward our waiting car. Behind us, Jake remained on the bench, watching his empire crumble while mine rose from its ashes. The boardroom fell silent as I finished my presentation. 6 months had passed since I'd left Jake, and here I was, presenting to the investment firm's board, this time as CEO of my own division. Impressive numbers, the lead investor said, studying the quarterly reports. You've managed to capture 40% of your previous company's market share in just half a year, along with expanding into 3 new sectors, Theo added proudly. My phone buzzed, a news alert about Dunn Consulting. I quickly scanned it under the table. Major family business faces bankruptcy. Dunn Consulting to auction office assets. Ms. Sonia, another board member leaned forward. There are rumors that your former company is facing liquidation. Any comments? Before I could answer, Lauren burst into the room. Sorry to interrupt, but you need to see this. She handed me her tablet, displaying a live video feed from outside Dunn Consulting's headquarters. Emerson stood at a podium, makeup perfectly applied despite her obvious distress. Regretfully announcing the closure of Dunn Consulting, she was saying. However, we have one final statement to make. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Sonia, if you're watching this, we were wrong, all of us. The success of this company was built on your work, your dedication, and your brilliance. I should have acknowledged that long ago. The board members watched intently as I set the tablet down. A bit late for recognition, isn't it? One of them commented. 6 months too late, I agreed, then turned back to my presentation. Now, about our international expansion plans. After the meeting, Lauren caught up with me in my office. They're offering us the full investment package. Theo's already reviewing the terms. Good, I nodded, then noticed her hesitation. What else? Jake's downstairs. Says he won't leave until you talk to him. I sighed, looking out my office window. Sure enough, Jake stood by the entrance, still in his suit but looking decidedly less polished than in his glory days. Send him up. Minutes later, Jake walked in, clutching a familiar leather portfolio, the one I'd used for years to prepare his presentations. I found this in my office while we were packing up, he said, placing it on my desk. All your original notes, your strategies. I never even read them properly before, just skimmed enough to present them as mine. Why are you here, Jake? The bankruptcy paperwork is being filed tomorrow. He sat heavily in the chair across from me. Mom's lost everything trying to save the company. Sophia's husband is talking about divorce because she guaranteed some of the loans. And you want me to help? Again? No, he said quietly. I want to apologize, really apologize, not just because we're desperate. He pulled out an envelope. I signed the divorce papers. You're free. My phone buzzed. Another news alert. Dunn family assets frozen pending investigation. Investigation? I looked up at Jake. Mom's creative accounting is coming to light, he admitted. Turns out she's been hiding losses for years, even before you left. That's why she pushed me so hard to keep you around. You were the only thing keeping us profitable. Lauren appeared in the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but Mrs. Miller is on line 1. Says it's urgent. I picked up the phone, putting it on speaker. Mrs. Miller, what can I do for you? I just watched Emerson's press conference, she said. I wanted you to know, every client who moved their business to you, we talk. We all knew you were the real talent. We were just waiting for you to realize it too. Jake flinched at her words. After ending the call, I opened the leather portfolio. Inside were years of my work, my ideas, my success, all credited to others. You know what the worst part was? I said to Jake. I would have shared the credit. If you just acknowledged me as a partner instead of a prop, I would have stayed. I know that now. He stood up. For what it's worth, I really am proud of what you've built here. You deserve it all. As he reached the door, he turned back. Oh, and Sonia, happy birthday. It's today, right? I finally remembered. I waited until he left before opening my desk drawer, pulling out the birthday card Zuriel had given me that morning. Inside, she'd written, "To the woman who turned invisibility into invincibility." My phone lit up with a message from Theo. Board approved the full investment, ready to go global. Lauren poked her head in. Should I send out the press release about the investment? I looked at the leather portfolio, then at the signed divorce papers, finally at the news headlines about the Dunn family's fall from grace. Yes, I said, standing up. But add one line. This expansion is dedicated to every person who's ever been invisible in their own success story. Lauren smiled. Perfect. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about building yourself up so high that they can't help but see you, even if they're looking up from rock bottom. And sometimes the greatest birthday gift you can give yourself is the power to write your own story. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee from the new cafe across the street as I walked into my office building. The lobby's wall-mounted TV displayed the business news. Rising star CEO named Business Leader of the Year. They used your good photo, Lauren teased, falling into step beside me. The one where you're not smiling like you're plotting someone's downfall. I never plot downfalls, I protested. They manage that perfectly well on their own. My phone buzzed. Sophia requesting a meeting. Again. She's persistent, Lauren noted, reading over my shoulder. Third time this week. Fourth, I corrected. She cornered me at the grocery store yesterday. The elevator opened to reveal Theo waiting in my office. Have you seen today's business journal? He handed me the magazine. There on the cover was a photo of me standing in front of our new headquarters, arms crossed, looking exactly like someone plotting downfalls. The headline read, "The Invisible Empire: How One Woman Turned Corporate Shadows into Spotlight Success." Page 16, Theo said, grinning. I flipped to it and found a familiar face. Emerson being escorted from court in handcuffs. The article detailed her conviction for financial fraud and embezzlement. Hard to believe she thought she could hide it forever, Lauren mused. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Jake. Mom's sentenced to 3 years. Sophia's divorce is final. I'm moving to Seattle for a fresh start. Thank you for not pressing additional charges. Speaking of Sophia, I said, what do you think she wants? Why don't you ask her yourself? Lauren pointed through the glass walls to where Sophia stood by the reception desk, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. I nodded to Lauren. Send her in. Sophia looked different, less polished, more human. She perched on the edge of the visitor's chair like she might flee at any moment. I got a job offer, she blurted out. A real one, entry-level marketing position. That's good? It's at one of your competitors' firms. She twisted her hands together. I wanted to make sure, I know how it might look. Sophia, I interrupted, are you asking my permission to take a job? I'm asking if you'll give me a reference, she whispered. Everyone knows I'm toxic now because of Mom's scandal, but they also know I'm your former sister-in-law. Your word carries weight. I studied her, this woman who'd watched her mother and brother take advantage of me for years, but also the woman who'd just lost everything and was trying to rebuild. Why should I help you? Because you taught me something, she said, straightening her spine. When everything fell apart, when Mom went to jail and Jake ran away, I realized I'd been living in their shadow just like you were. The difference is, you did something about it. My phone lit up with another message, Mrs. Miller asking about our upcoming charity gala. The same gala the Dunns used to host, where I'd always been seated at the back. The job, I asked Sophia, what exactly would you be doing? Assistant marketing coordinator, basic stuff, social media, event planning. And you'd be okay starting at the bottom? No shortcuts, no family connections? She nodded firmly. I want to earn something for myself, like you did. I opened my laptop, started typing. I'm sending your potential employer an email. I'm going to tell them exactly who you are and what your family did. Sophia's face fell. And then, I continued, I'm going to tell them how you came here today, asking for nothing but a chance to prove yourself, just like I once needed. Tears welled in her eyes. Really? Really? I hit send. But Sophia, don't waste this chance. I won't, she promised, standing up. At the door, she paused. You know, Jake kept your birthday card on his desk, the one you left the night you walked out. I think he finally understood what he lost wasn't just the business. After she left, Lauren brought in coffee. That was generous of you. It was strategic, I corrected her. Sometimes the best way to maintain power is to help others find theirs. My phone buzzed one final time. Zuriel sending a photo of the birthday cake she'd ordered for our celebration dinner tonight. The icing read, "To the woman who made herself impossible to forget." I smiled, looking out at the city skyline. My skyline now. The invisible woman had built her empire, not by tearing others down, but by rising so high they had no choice but to see her. "Lauren," I called out, "let's move that charity gala to the main ballroom and make sure everyone can see who's hosting it now." Sometimes the best endings aren't about revenge at all. They're about becoming exactly who you were meant to be, visible, powerful, and impossible to ignore.
On a spring afternoon in Philadelphia's Main Line district, where new buds swayed on the street trees, Linda Collins gazed at the soft sunlight streaming through the window as she turned off her work computer. The clock showed 3 p.m. "Time to pick up Emily," she murmured. Leaving the PR firm's office early was part of her daily routine to pick up her daughter from daycare. Her colleagues were well aware of her schedule and would often say, "Give Emily our love." Though her work handling press releases and crisis management for major corporations was never easy, her supervisor was accommodating of her childcare needs. In return, Linda made sure to complete all her assignments by their deadlines. At 32, Linda struggled daily to balance work and childcare, but seeing her 4-year-old daughter Emily's smile made all the fatigue disappear. She had been married to James for 7 years after meeting him in college. As a manager at an IT company, he appeared to be the ideal husband and father on the surface. Bright Horizons Daycare was about a 15-minute drive away. It was a well-regarded childcare facility, and Linda had chosen it particularly because she resonated with the director's educational philosophy. Every Sunday, Emily attended Sunday school at church with her daycare friends, learning Bible stories together. Upon arrival, Maria Thompson, a young teacher, greeted her at the entrance as usual. At 27, Maria was in her second year as a childcare worker, but her gentle smile and dedication had earned the trust of both children and parents alike. "Linda, Emily made another lovely drawing today," Maria said, holding out a piece of paper. The drawing showed a family scene rendered in colorful crayons. Next to 4 figures drawn with wobbly lines was written, "My family." Emily often drew similar family pictures at Sunday school too. "Oh, what a darling picture. Thank you so much." Just then, Emily burst out of the nursery room. "Mommy," she called out, running toward Linda. With her golden curls bouncing and her light blue dress flowing, she looked like a spring fairy. In her small hand, she clutched a cookie made by Teacher Maria. "Did you have fun today?" "Yes. Teacher Maria and my friends found tulips in the garden. And look, Teacher gave me a special cookie." As they got into the car, Linda checked on Emily in the rearview mirror. Recently, her husband had been coming home late more often, and she worried Emily might be feeling lonely. However, Emily maintained her bright and friendly personality. Just this February at the daycare's parent meeting, Teacher Maria had praised Emily's sociable nature. "Is Daddy going to be late again today?" "Yes, it seems he's started a big project." They climbed into the SUV and headed to Wegmans as usual. Shopping at the supermarket was precious mother-daughter time. Emily sat in the shopping cart, chatting happily while pointing at items. She was especially excited in the bakery section, her eyes sparkling as she chose ingredients for the cookies that were always popular at the church's potluck parties on Sundays. On their way home after buying dinner ingredients, Linda was deep in thought. True, James had been acting differently lately. His phone was often unreachable, and he increasingly dismissed everything with "work is busy." Last Sunday, he even missed church, citing an urgent meeting. But normally, they attended as a family and had a good reputation in the neighborhood. Surely, he must just be handling a major project. Trying to convince herself of this, Linda parked the car in their garage in the quiet residential area. At the front entrance, Mrs. Johnson waved warmly as always while tending to her garden. The next day, Linda left work early as usual and headed to the daycare. The local news anchor on the car radio was giving the weekend weather forecast. Linda smiled at the announcer's words, "It looks like we'll have perfect weather for Easter service this weekend." Arriving at the Bright Horizons parking lot, she noticed more cars than usual. "Oh right, there's a PTA board meeting today," she remembered. She was supposed to discuss preparations for next month's spring festival with the other mothers from Emily's class. When she entered, Maria Thompson was unusually absent, and instead, Director Grace Wilson was standing there. "Oh, Linda. Maria wasn't feeling well and left early today. You're here for Emily, right?" Linda felt slightly concerned hearing this. "Emily, your mother's here." Grace called toward the nursery room, and Emily came running out as usual. Today she wore her light blue dress with her favorite pink ribbon. Emily ran toward her with open arms, her yellow backpack bouncing on her back. "Did you have fun today?" "Yes. But Teacher Maria had to go home because her tummy hurt. I hope she feels better soon." The PTA board meeting ended in about 30 minutes, with plans set for the traditional bake sale at the spring festival. Linda was assigned to make her lemon cookies, which had been popular last year. They got in the car and headed to Wegmans as usual. Emily chatted happily from the back seat about her day at daycare, playing pretend with her friends, getting praised for her rainbow drawing. Then suddenly, Emily's tone changed. "Oh, Mama. There's something strange in my backpack." Looking in the rearview mirror, Linda saw Emily opening her yellow backpack. "What kind of thing?" "Like a brown box." "It's not mine." Linda's heart seemed to stop for a moment. An unknown object in her daughter's bag. A brown box, no less. "Emily, close your bag for now. Mama will check it when we get home." At home, Linda told Emily to watch TV while she checked the contents of the backpack in the kitchen. Sure enough, there was an unfamiliar brown package inside. A box wrapped in plain brown paper with no addressee or sender listed. It was slightly larger than a paperback book. When she picked it up, it was heavier than expected. Shaking it slightly, she could feel something moving inside. Looking closer, she noticed the wrapping paper was slightly torn at the edge, revealing a glimpse of a black object inside. In that moment, Linda felt a chilling fear run down her spine. Her husband's cell phone was unreachable, and there was no response to the messages she left on his voicemail. She hesitated about calling the police, worried about causing a scene that might frighten Emily without solid evidence. In the end, she decided to wrap the package in several layers of newspaper and store it in the back of the storage room. That night, Linda could barely sleep. Watching Emily's peaceful sleeping form beside her, she considered various possibilities. It could be a simple mistake. But why was there no name or sender? Why hadn't it been noticed at the daycare? And why had Maria left early? Finally, her husband came home after 1 a.m. Looking tired, he just said, "I was late preparing for a big presentation," and headed to bed without even showering when she tried to talk about the package, saying, "Let's talk tomorrow." The next morning, Linda made a decision. She would dispose of the package in a trash bin at the station on her way to work. As a precaution, she took a photo of the package with her smartphone, in case she noticed anything suspicious later. The moment she threw the package into the trash bin, she almost remembered where she had seen that black object before, but she stopped herself from thinking about it. This is the end. Let's forget about it. That's what she told herself. After dropping Emily off at daycare, she found Maria had come to work. She greeted Linda with her usual smile, saying, "Good morning," but her gaze seemed to wander somehow. "You weren't feeling well yesterday. I hope you're better now." Throughout their conversation, Maria's eyes seemed to constantly follow Emily's backpack. Arriving at the office, her colleague Sarah excitedly approached her. "Linda, did you hear? They found a suspicious object at the shopping mall in the next town. They say it might be an explosive device." In that moment, the black object she had seen yesterday vividly returned to Linda's mind. Like the ones often seen on TV news. "No, stop thinking about it. It's just a coincidence." Trying to convince herself of this, Linda attempted to focus on work. In the evening, breaking news flashed across the local news. An explosion occurred this afternoon in a trash bin at a suburban Philadelphia station. While fortunately there were no injuries, police are investigating the possibility of a planned attack using a timed device. The screen showed the trash bin where Linda had disposed of the package. Her mind went blank. Her ears were ringing. Cold sweat ran down her back. And the photo of the package saved on her smartphone seemed about to scream. The morning after the explosion news, there were 2 police cars parked in front of Bright Horizons daycare. Even from a distance, Linda could see police officers in deep discussion with the director. Having arrived earlier than usual, Linda parked at the edge of the parking lot and heaved a deep sigh. "Mama, there are police officers," Emily called out from the back seat. "Yes, they're here to keep everyone safe, I'm sure." As they approached the entrance, in addition to the uniformed officers, a man who appeared to be a detective in plain clothes was speaking to each parent one by one. When it was Linda's turn, the detective began questioning her with a gentle demeanor. "Mrs. Linda Collins, have you noticed any suspicious persons or incidents recently?" "Not really," Linda began, then hesitated. "Though my husband has been acting a bit strange lately." The detective nodded slightly, taking notes. Behind him, she could see Maria talking with other parents. Her expression seemed tense, different from her usual calm demeanor. "Oh, and, the other day, Maria suddenly left early." "You mean Miss Thompson?" The detective's tone subtly changed. "Yes. I heard she wasn't feeling well." That afternoon, while at her computer at work, breaking news came in. Suspicious objects found at suburban Philadelphia daycare, police investigating connection to explosion. While the daycare's name wasn't mentioned, the article stated suspicious objects may have been found in multiple children's bags. Linda immediately took out her smartphone to check the photo of the package. She was glad she had taken the picture. But should she show it to the police? When she arrived at the daycare still carrying her anxiety, she found multiple police officers watching over children playing in the garden. "Mrs. Collins." It was the same detective from the morning. "If you don't mind, could we talk a bit more?" She was led to the staff room, where Director Grace was also present. "Actually, we'd like to ask about Ms. Thompson. Has your daughter received any special gifts from her recently?" Linda caught her breath. "The cookies from the other day. And the package." Everything was starting to connect. That night, her husband unusually came home early. While he was in the shower, Linda decided to check his car, having made up her mind. Opening the car door in the garage, she found an unfamiliar women's handbag under the passenger seat. Inside were Maria Thompson's driver's license and numerous photos of the two of them together. The photos were dated, all from before Maria was hired at the daycare. Their relationship had been going on for that long. While preparing dinner in the kitchen, Linda's mind was swirling with complex thoughts. Her husband's affair. Maria's true identity. And most of all, the possibility that her daughter's life had been in danger. The next morning, a shocking message went out on the PTA contact network. "Last night, a staff member from our facility was cooperating with police questioning. While we understand this causes great concern, we are maintaining strict security measures with the children's safety as our top priority." At the end of the message was the line, "Please don't hesitate to contact us with any concerns," followed by a child consultation hotline number. Rushing to the daycare, Linda found reporters gathering around the building. There were more police present. In the parking lot, mothers had formed small circles and were talking. "I heard that teacher had problems at her previous daycare too. She was so kind to the children." Rumors spread rapidly. Linda nodded silently, thinking about the photos in the car. And the photo of that package. She kept opening her smartphone, still unsure whether to report it to the police. "Mrs. Collins." A voice came from behind. Turning around, she found the detective standing there. "If you don't mind, could you come to the station? We've received new information." On the way to the police station, Linda made up her mind. She would tell them everything. About the package, the photos, and her husband's relationship with Maria. However, when she arrived at the station, the detective said something unexpected. Actually, we've received a confession from suspect Thompson. And the detective paused as if choosing his words carefully. Your husband's name has come up as well. Sitting across from Linda, the detective laid out several photos of Maria Thompson. Photos of her smiling at the daycare. Security camera footage of her holding suspicious packages. And photos from her previous daycare in another state. Suspect Thompson has shown signs of obsessive disorder before, the detective quietly explained. She was involved in a similar incident at a daycare in Delaware. According to the documents spread on the desk, 3 years ago, Maria was caught trying to plant dangerous materials in children's belongings at a daycare in Delaware. However, since it was discovered before any actual harm occurred, she only received a stern warning. She had reportedly been receiving psychiatric treatment afterward. Why would someone like that? Linda's voice trembled. Her resume was skillfully fabricated. She completely hid her background and even prepared fake letters of recommendation. The door to the interrogation room opened, and a female detective brought in new documents. They included copies of Maria's psychiatric records. Borderline personality disorder. Obsessive disorder. Her treatment had been discontinued. The issue is her relationship with your husband, the detective carefully chose his words. We know they were involved before she started working at the daycare. Linda took out the photos she had taken from her husband's car. The dates clearly showed they were from before Maria's employment. Had everything been planned? Actually, the detective lowered his voice. There's a high possibility that your husband was pulling strings behind her employment at the daycare. According to Maria's confession, it all went back 3 years. She met James online, and their relationship quickly deepened. However, when James became reluctant to divorce, Maria's mental state gradually became unstable. The suspect planned to use your daughter to involve you in an accident. Linda suddenly stood up from her chair. Use Emily. Yes. By placing explosives in Emily's bag, if an accident occurred, it would become the daycare's responsibility. She thought this would force you to transfer your daughter. That seems to have been her thinking. The security camera footage projected on the interrogation room wall showed Maria preparing packages in an empty classroom at the daycare. She had apparently tried to place similar packages in other children's bags as well. Did your husband know about this plan? Linda took a deep breath. I don't know, but... She took out her cell phone and showed the screen. No matter how many times I called, he wouldn't try to contact me at all. Just then, the interrogation room door opened again. Suspect Collins has arrived. Linda's heart jumped. James. Ma'am, I apologize, the detective said apologetically. Actually, we've been waiting at the airport. Your husband was attempting to flee the country. Everything went dark before Linda's eyes. Attempted escape abroad. That meant James had been involved in the incident. Everything started connecting. Maria's employment at the daycare. Her unusual early departure. And that package. The detective spread out new documents. Suspect Thompson's psychiatric treatment fees were also paid by your husband. And the arrangement of forged documents needed for daycare employment. Outside the window, dusk was approaching. Church bells rang in the distance, announcing the children's time to return home. The sound that was once a symbol of peaceful daily life now rang strangely cold. The detective spoke gently. I know this must be a tremendous shock, but could we ask you to meet with your husband? James was already sitting in the next room. When he was apprehended at the airport, he had been carrying tickets to South America. Before that, Linda took out her smartphone with trembling hands. There's something I need to show you. While showing the photo of the package, Linda told them everything. From its discovery to its disposal. And about the explosion. This will be crucial evidence, the detective nodded seriously. You did well to take a photo. Walking down the hallway, Linda was deep in thought. She was about to face her husband. The man she once loved. The man who had endangered their daughter's life. The interrogation room door opened. James sat there looking exhausted. His suit was wrinkled, a far cry from his usually neat appearance. When their eyes met, he looked down. There was no trace left of the husband she once knew. Why? Just one word. That was Linda's first utterance. Emily could never return to that daycare. A new life would begin tomorrow. However, as a mother, Linda was determined to protect Emily, even if it meant completely breaking away from their previous life. 6 months after the incident, their life was moving forward slowly but surely. Mama, look! Emily came running with her creation from Sunday school. A rainbow-colored butterfly made of origami. Teacher said it's a symbol of new beginnings. Linda embraced her daughter. Emily had adapted well to her new daycare and had regained her brightness, showing no signs of trauma. The child psychologist had assured her, children's resilience is remarkable. The outcome of the incident shocked the community. Maria Thompson was diagnosed with obsessive disorder and borderline personality disorder by psychiatrists and received a 5-year prison sentence. She was required to participate in rehabilitation programs and would never be allowed to work in educational institutions again after her release. James also served time for aiding in the manufacture of explosives and destroying evidence. The divorce proceedings progressed swiftly, with Linda gaining custody and rights to the house. Her lawyer said, "Your calm judgment and taking that photo of the package were crucial in winning the case." Linda, today's Bible study was so meaningful, Mrs. Mary said, offering her a warm cup of coffee. She had become Linda's emotional support after the incident. Yes. The passage, "The Lord is my light," really resonated with me. The courage to move forward even in darkness, perhaps that was the mission given to her as a mother. That's how Linda felt. Bright Horizons Daycare overhauled its management system after this incident, thoroughly checking staff backgrounds and strengthening security systems. However, Emily's new daycare was a smaller facility closer to home. The director was a 30-year veteran who showed deep affection for each child. "Hey Mama, can I help with the Harvest Thanksgiving Festival this Sunday?" Emily asked, her eyes sparkling. Participating in church events had become an important part of their new life. "Of course. It will be a wonderful time of blessing for everyone." At dusk, the two headed home. Along the way, Emily collected fallen autumn leaves, throwing them up and enjoying watching them flutter down. The car radio was broadcasting news about the local police's new guidelines for protecting children's safety. When they arrived home, there was homemade bread from a neighbor on the porch. The attached card read, "Your strength inspires us. Trusting a mother's intuition. Prioritizing children's safety above all else. And having the courage to live with new hope even after betrayal by a loved one." These lessons were now shared among many mothers. The full moon gently illuminated the bedroom window. Emily whispered, "Good night, Mama," and began breathing peacefully. Linda quietly prayed by the bedside. "Lord, grant us peace." A new season's breeze gently stirred the lace curtains. In the quiet residential neighborhood of Newton, a suburb of Boston, stood a New England colonial-style home. The three-bedroom house with its white exterior walls accented by deep green shutters was Linda Wilson's ideal home, found through her experience as a real estate agent. Within walking distance were a Whole Foods Market and Starbucks, and on weekends, neighborhood ladies would gather casually for coffee and conversation in this peaceful community. As May transitioned from spring to early summer, the sweet fragrance of lilacs planted in the garden wafted on the fresh green breeze. Beyond the impeccably maintained lawn that belied its 10 years, Linda had her cherished small vegetable garden. It had become a weekend custom for neighborhood ladies to stop by and chat with Linda as she tended to her garden. "I want to feed organic vegetables to the baby who's on the way," Linda would say, her profile glowing like a young girl's as she worked in her garden. With shoulder-length brown hair tied back and an air of intelligence about her, she was a career woman with top sales records at a high-end Boston real estate company. Her passion for work and sincere personality earned her clients deep trust, so much so that she was still handling important deals even during her pregnancy. Michael, her husband whom she met at an Episcopal church, was Linda's ideal man. Working as a middle manager at an IT startup, he maintained a casual startup vibe while being polite and considerate, well regarded by neighbors. From before their marriage, he had clearly supported Linda's career, and that hadn't changed after they wed. "They're truly an ideal couple," people would often say, and Linda's heart would fill with happiness each time. She had a husband who understood her desire to continue her career after marriage. They attended church together on holidays, and shared their dreams for the future. Upstairs, an adorable nursery painted in pastel yellow was already prepared. As the eagerly anticipated due date approached, Michael's behavior began to change subtly. Increased overtime, frequent weekend work, and occasionally, the scent of unfamiliar perfume on his clothes. However, Linda, focused on her upcoming delivery, had no spare attention for such minor changes. After a difficult delivery, their precious daughter Emma was born. The tiny life became an irreplaceable treasure for both parents. In the clean hospital room at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, Linda felt perfect happiness as she gazed at her child. Her husband remained gentle and attentive after the birth. Congratulatory messages arrived from her family in Florida, and neighbors brought homemade casseroles. Everything was wrapped in warmth. However, that happiness was fragile and fleeting, like the last lilacs blooming at the end of May. On a peaceful May afternoon, a taxi departed from Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, heading slowly toward Boston's suburbs. In the front passenger seat sat a paper bag filled with postpartum care items prepared by the nurses, while Linda cradled newborn Emma in the back seat. "The baby looks just like you," said the taxi driver, who appeared to be Haitian, offering a gentle smile through the rearview mirror. "I'm a father of 3, but nothing is more lovely than a newborn baby." Emma slept peacefully, wrapped in a white blanket. Despite the difficult delivery, she looked surprisingly healthy. Linda thought her tiny lips occasionally moving looked like an angel smiling. "Thank you," Linda smiled gently. "She's a girl." Glancing at her smartphone screen, she noticed the battery was at 5%. She had forgotten to charge it in the post-delivery rush. "I should send Michael a message before we arrive," she thought, beginning to type. "We'll be home soon. Emma's been sleeping the whole time. Love you." The moment she pressed send, the screen went dark. "Well, we'll be home soon anyway," Linda thought dismissively, turning her attention back to her daughter's sleeping face. As the taxi turned onto Beacon Street and entered the familiar tree-lined road, she noticed something was wrong. Multiple emergency vehicles were parked in the usually quiet residential street. 3 police cars and a fire truck. Yellow tape was strung up, and uniformed police officers were bustling about. Neighbors had gathered, talking excitedly. "I wonder what's happening." As the taxi drew closer, Linda's heartbeat quickened. The police vehicles were undeniably gathered in front of her house. The white colonial-style house was completely surrounded by yellow tape. "Is this all right here?" the driver asked anxiously. "Yes, thank you." Linda carefully got out while holding the baby. Despite the early summer weather, a spine-chilling anxiety enveloped her entire body. A police officer quickly approached Linda. He appeared to be a veteran officer, with a stern expression that somehow held a trace of kindness. "Ma'am, you can't enter the house right now." At those words, Linda's mind went blank. Emma stirred slightly in her arms. "Why not?" Her voice, trying desperately to maintain composure, trembled slightly. The police officer paused for a moment and sighed deeply. "We received a report of a gas leak and are currently investigating." His explanation seemed somehow evasive. Linda instinctively knew this wasn't the whole story. "My husband. Where is my husband?" The police officer's expression momentarily tensed. "I'm sorry. We're currently trying to contact relevant parties." Just then, Emma suddenly began to cry. Her tiny body trembled, and her thin cry echoed through the silent street. Mrs. Johnson, a neighbor, rushed over. "Linda, come this way." She offered what appeared to be a handmade soft blanket. "The baby looks cold." Amidst the confusion, Linda followed Mrs. Johnson's guidance. Mrs. Johnson's living room was elegantly furnished with antiques, bathed in spring sunlight. Photos, presumably from her younger days, adorned the walls, and pictures of grandchildren lined the mantelpiece. She efficiently created a space for Linda and Emma. "Shall I warm some milk?" Mrs. Johnson called from the kitchen. "For when the baby wakes up." Before Linda could answer, a young police officer entered the room. "Ma'am, may I speak with you?" The officer's nameplate read, Sarah Murphy. She conveyed a motherly warmth within her professional demeanor. "First, let me explain the situation," Officer Murphy began, opening her notebook. "Around 1 p.m. today, we received a report of a young woman breaking into your home. The living room clock quietly showed 3 o'clock. Emma slept peacefully, wrapped in the soft blanket Mrs. Johnson had provided. The report came from Mrs. Brown across the street. She witnessed an unknown young woman entering your house. After hearing sounds of objects being thrown and smelling gas, she immediately contacted the police." Linda pictured Mrs. Brown, who often worked in her garden. She was an active member of the neighborhood watch, always vigilant about community safety. "Initial investigation has confirmed the following points," Officer Murphy continued, carefully explaining each detail. "First, the kitchen window was broken. The gas stove appears to have been deliberately damaged. There's also significant damage to indoor furniture." Linda felt a constricting pain in her chest. The perfect life she had believed in until yesterday was suddenly crumbling. "Also, your husband's car was found in the home's parking space. Michael had said he was leaving early for an important meeting this morning." "His phone?" Linda asked in a hoarse voice. "It was left in the car. There are multiple missed calls and unread messages." Just then, Emma began to cry softly. As Linda picked her up, Mrs. Johnson appeared with the warmed milk. "Linda, let's take a break," she said gently. "The police can wait that long, can't they?" Officer Murphy nodded understandingly. "Of course. The baby's care comes first." After Emma finished feeding and fell back asleep, another police officer entered the room with new information. "We've received new testimony. Multiple witness accounts match regarding the characteristics of the suspected woman." Linda found herself unconsciously listening. Late 20s, about 5 feet 5 inches, wearing a suit. Shoulder-length black hair, carrying a luxury brand bag. At that moment, a memory flashed in Linda's mind. A photo from a company party posted on Michael's social media. An unfamiliar woman in that photo. Feeling her extremities grow cold, Linda took out her smartphone. The battery was completely dead, but Mrs. Johnson lent her a charger. When the screen lit up, she first opened Michael's social media account. While he didn't post much, the company's official account had many event photos posted. There she was, a young woman smiling next to Michael. Dressed sophisticatedly with an intelligent air about her. Her name was tagged in the post. Caitlin Morrison. Do you know this woman? Officer Murphy quietly asked. The name struck a chord. It was a name Michael had been mentioning frequently lately. He had said she was a talented subordinate. Memories began fitting together like puzzle pieces. Michael's increased overtime. Frequent weekend work. The unfamiliar perfume scent on his clothes. His slight tension when checking his phone. And that somewhat strained smile after learning of the pregnancy. Officer Murphy began speaking carefully, choosing her words. Actually, we've received some interesting information from a hospital nurse. Linda caught her breath. During her 3 days at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, she now recalled seeing a familiar nurse, one who had been speaking intimately with the woman from Michael's company photos. That nurse appears to be Caitlin Morrison's close friend. She may have leaked your discharge date and time in advance. Outside the window, police sirens still faintly echoed. The early summer sunlight remained bright, with shadows of street trees swaying. However, dark premonitions swirled in Linda's heart. Watching Emma sleep, Linda continued her internal questioning. Why had a strange woman broken into her house? Why was Michael's car in the parking lot? And above all, had their happy days together been real? The doorbell rang, and they heard someone hurriedly entering the house. Linda's heart raced. She already knew who it was. Michael's panicked voice came from downstairs. Linda. Where's Linda? His voice carried a frantic quality she had never heard before. And mixed within that chaos was something unmistakably like guilt. His footsteps climbing Mrs. Johnson's stairs matched Linda's heartbeat. When Michael entered the room, the air seemed to freeze. His usually neat dress shirt was wrinkled, his tie askew. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. The composed man she knew was gone, replaced by someone in complete disarray. Linda. Michael's voice trembled. Emma, is Emma all right? Seeing the sleeping Emma, his shoulders slumped. At that moment, he covered his face with both hands and collapsed where he stood. I'll tell you everything, he said in a strained voice. I can't hide it anymore. Officer Murphy quietly stood up. Then we'll step out for a moment. But Linda shook her head. No, please stay. Her voice was surprisingly calm, even to herself. Emma stirred slightly in her arms. The baby's warmth was her only support now. Michael heaved a deep sigh, as if unloading a burden he had carried for years. For 2 years. He began, staring at the floor. I've been involved with Caitlin. The room's atmosphere grew heavier. She was my subordinate. Working overtime together on projects. Michael's voice broke. At first, I thought it was just a mistake. But the relationship continued. And then, she became pregnant. Linda's body trembled slightly at those words. Michael continued. When I learned of your pregnancy, I made a decision. To end everything. I told Caitlin clearly that we couldn't continue our relationship. But that was just the beginning of a new tragedy. Persistent messages began arriving on Michael's phone. What about our baby? This child needs a father. At work, casual encounters increased. Chance meetings in the elevator. Being alone together in meeting rooms. Brief conversations by the coffee maker. Then the social media harassment began. Michael's voice shook. She started leaving comments on your photos. Not direct harassment, but suggestive emojis and ominous words. Linda silently opened her smartphone. Indeed, there were comments from unknown accounts on her posts, especially on the pregnancy announcement. Caitlin became increasingly desperate, Michael continued. Last week, she told me she had miscarried. The room's atmosphere grew even heavier. But that was a lie. She was still in early pregnancy. And Michael's voice caught. She had a friend at the hospital. She learned your discharge date. All the pieces were now connecting. This morning, I received a final message from her. Michael pulled out another phone from his pocket, presumably his work phone. If I can't be happy, neither can you. I canceled the meeting and rushed home, but Michael's voice trembled. She had already broken in, spread gas, and destroyed furniture. When I tried to stop her. Just then, there was a sound from downstairs. Everyone held their breath. Michael Wilson, a young woman's voice rang out. After ruining my life, you're hiding up here. Caitlin appeared in the room. She wore a luxury brand suit, but her appearance was miserably disheveled. Her makeup was smeared, her eyes held a maniacal gleam. Your perfect little family game ends here, she said in a hoarse voice. I'm going to end it all. Caitlin's hands shook. Tears streamed from her eyes. I deserved to be happy too. With those words, she was restrained. When silence returned to the room, only Emma's crying could be heard. Linda still held Emma with trembling hands. The baby's soft breathing gradually began to calm. Michael looked hesitantly at Linda. His eyes showed colors of regret and penitence. But Linda just silently continued gazing at the baby. The perfect marriage life she thought she had. The man she believed was an ideal husband. Everything crumbled in an instant. However, the weight of the small life sleeping in her arms gave her new strength. Mrs. Johnson gently placed her hand on Linda's shoulder. That warmth was now her greatest comfort. 1 year later, in May, morning light streamed into the living room of a small apartment facing Cold Spring Park. The leaves of potted plants by the window created gentle dappled shadows. Good morning, Emma. Linda lifted her daughter, who had just started toddling. At 1 year old, Emma had grown into a girl with large eyes just like her mother's and a friendly smile. Emma's first word was, Mama. Linda still vividly remembered that moment. Her parents, who had rushed from Florida, were also present for that memorable occasion. A pleasant aroma wafted from the coffee maker in the kitchen. She had replaced the one from their previous house with a new one perfectly sized for this compact kitchen. But the changes weren't just in appliances. After the incident, Caitlin Morrison's trial began. A psychiatric evaluation revealed she had been under severe stress. However, it was also clear that the crime was premeditated. Eventually, she received a 3-year suspended sentence. Additionally, she was ordered to undergo mandatory counseling and relocate outside Massachusetts. During the trial, it was revealed that she had miscarried early in her pregnancy. When Linda learned this fact, she was struck by complex emotions. Amidst mixed feelings of hatred and sympathy, she made one decision. I can't forgive, but I won't continue to hate. This was also for Emma's sake. Michael completely lost his credibility at work. He was demoted and ultimately forced to change companies. He pays child support reliably. The divorce proceeded smoothly, and regular visits with Emma are now arranged through lawyers. Our marriage is over, but you're still Emma's father. When Linda told him this, Michael could only nod with a choked voice. Changes also appeared in relationships with those around her. Mrs. Johnson still brings homemade casseroles once a week. Her grandchildren often visit as playmates for Emma. Linda maintains connections with the nurses from Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center through a parenting circle. Work has gradually gotten back on track. Starting with 3 days a week part-time, she's now returned to real estate work full-time. With her parents taking turns helping out, she's slowly getting used to balancing work and childcare. This Sunday is your baptism at church. Linda spoke softly while settling Emma into her high chair. The baptism at the Episcopal Church would be a celebration for the entire community. The preparations were already complete. On the kitchen counter lay invitations for Emma's first birthday party. A small celebration with neighborhood children and friends from the parenting circle. Simple, but sure to be a warm gathering. Good morning, Linda. The doorbell rang, and Thomas Singleton's voice could be heard. He was a colleague from the real estate company, and they had gradually grown closer recently. His gentle demeanor and sincere personality had even won Emma over. But it was still too early for romance. Taking things one step at a time was just fine. While preparing breakfast, Linda looked out the window. It was May, the season of fresh greenery and the scent of lilacs. This time last year, her life had been thrown into turmoil. But now, she was seeing a different landscape. As a mother, as a woman, and as a strong individual. Emma laughed in the sunlight. Her innocent smile warmed Linda's heart. Having lost her perfect family, she had found a new kind of happiness. It was a future that, despite its scars, was filled with genuine hope. Well, Emma, let's make today another wonderful day. In the morning light, a new day for mother and daughter quietly began. In the upscale Gainey Ranch neighborhood of Scottsdale, on the outskirts of Phoenix, Arizona, Jennifer Wilson was preparing to take her son Eric to the hospital in her RAV4 on a scorching Saturday morning in June. The silver 2022 SUV quietly started its engine in front of their elegant single-family home, surrounded by the neighborhood's tree-lined streets. Eric, how are you feeling? I'm okay, Mom. Feeling good today. 8-year-old Eric smiled from the back seat, his emergency inhaler resting on his lap. It had been 5 years since he was diagnosed with severe multiple chemical sensitivity at age 3. Even everyday school supplies and toys that other children used without a second thought required careful consideration for Eric. Jennifer, a top-performing sales agent at a major real estate company, had been juggling her work while managing her son's condition. Wednesdays were particularly challenging, with important client meetings scheduled until evening, requiring careful coordination with her husband Michael to arrange Eric's transportation. As she parked the car in the quiet weekend parking lot at Mayo Clinic, Jennifer reflected on her son's medical history. Weekly checkups. The whole family's meticulous attention to detail. They had carefully selected everything from detergents to air fresheners, creating a safe environment where Eric could live comfortably. Michael, despite his busy schedule as a co-owner of a local construction company, always made time to monitor their son's health. That morning, before heading to work, he had reminded her, "Make sure to pass along my questions to the specialist." Her mild-mannered, family-oriented husband was also devoted to his sister. Sometimes, that devotion became a source of tension that threatened their family's peace. Their combined annual income exceeded $150,000, which helped them manage Eric's expensive medical treatments. Their spacious Gainey Ranch home stood as a testament to their hard work. On weekends, they enjoyed a peaceful life, shopping at Scottsdale Fashion Square or having family dinners at the Cheesecake Factory. However, there was one person who cast a shadow over this tranquil life. Michael's sister, Linda. She had built a career as a research assistant at a chemical plant, but suddenly quit a year ago, declaring she would become a freelance designer. Her monthly income was only around $2,000. Despite this, she continued living in an expensive Phoenix apartment, regularly depending on her brother and sister-in-law to cover her living expenses. During last summer's family vacation to Sedona, Linda had borrowed Jennifer's spare car key, just in case, and never returned it. Despite several requests for its return, she always responded with a vague, "I'll look for it." Just last week, Linda had asked to borrow $4,500, claiming she was 3 months behind on rent. Jennifer had reached her limit with Linda's attitude. "Linda, you need to become independent. We're already struggling with Eric's medical expenses." When Jennifer firmly refused, Linda's expression instantly twisted. There was a look of hatred in her eyes that Jennifer had never seen before. Even Michael, unusually, had lectured his sister. "Linda, you're old enough to work. Think about moving back home or finding a cheaper apartment." These words enraged Linda, who screamed, "Why don't you understand?" before storming out of the house. As the front door slammed shut, Eric pressed himself against his mother's back, trembling slightly. Since then, the family atmosphere had changed completely. Eric began clinging to his mother, saying, "I'm scared of Aunt Linda," while Michael took his sister's side, creating a rift with his wife. Dinner conversations became sparse, and family outings decreased. Though everyone pretended not to notice, the family's balance had already begun to shift dramatically. After finishing the doctor's consultation and returning to the parking lot, Jennifer caught a glimpse of her son in the rearview mirror. No matter what happened, she had to protect this child's smile. This resolve stemmed from a mother's instinct, a desperate wish. One Wednesday in June, at 6 p.m., Jennifer was heading home after finishing negotiations with a major client, her feet heavy with fatigue. The shadows of palm trees lining the upscale neighborhood streets were growing longer. Just as she turned the corner toward home, feeling relieved that the deal had finally closed, Jennifer froze. The garage space where she usually parked her RAV4 was empty. No way. She frantically pulled out her phone and called Michael. Michael, the car's gone. It might have been stolen. Just as Jennifer's trembling fingers were about to dial emergency services, a familiar silver RAV4 quietly turned onto the street. Behind the wheel was Linda, her face concealed by sunglasses, a black mask, and a large hat. When the car stopped, Linda stepped out casually, carrying several shopping bags. She acted as if she had been using her own car. "Sorry about that, I had an urgent errand. But I filled up the gas tank." Linda's voice was cheerful, but there was something sinister lurking in her expression. "Please make sure to ask permission first next time." Jennifer maintained her composure as she spoke, but her heart was pounding. The spare key that Linda had kept since last year's family vacation, she never imagined she would actually use it. Yes, I understand." Linda responded flippantly and turned on her heel. At that moment, Jennifer didn't miss seeing Linda toss something into the garden bushes, though the twilight made it impossible to identify what it was. She needed to pick up Eric right away. She headed to Mrs. Johnson's house and returned home with Eric. Upon seeing the RAV4 parked in the driveway, Eric's expression darkened. "Mom, there's a weird smell in the car." Those words sent chills down Jennifer's spine. Eric, with his chemical sensitivity, was more perceptive to strange odors than anyone else. Sometimes, this served as a warning of dangerous situations. "It smells like the disinfectant Aunt Linda uses." Eric's voice was trembling. She could see the color draining from her son's face. She quickly reached for his emergency inhaler. Eric's asthma attacks occurred immediately when exposed to chemical substances. The irritating odor lingering in the car was indeed an unusual chemical smell. That night, when Michael returned home, Jennifer explained what had happened. "Michael, Linda took the car without permission. Eric says there's a strange smell." However, Michael's reaction was unexpected. "Are you suspecting Linda again?" "She's my sister." "That's enough. You're not using that car anymore." Her husband unilaterally declared this, prohibiting Jennifer from driving. Even Eric's testimony was dismissed as imagination. That night, Jennifer couldn't sleep. The RAV4 in the parking lot cast an eerie shadow in the moonlight. The strange odor that had lingered in the car. Linda's meaningful smile. And her son's attack. Perhaps it was all a harbinger of something to come. An unfathomable anxiety spread through Jennifer's chest. In the darkness of their bedroom, she felt like she was praying. The next morning, Michael was preparing for work. He picked up the RAV4 keys from the garage, seemingly unconcerned about Jennifer's worries. A heavy atmosphere hung over the breakfast table. "Dad, the car still smells weird," Eric pleaded in a small voice, but Michael ignored his son's words. As Jennifer began to say something, Michael was already heading to the garage. It was 7 a.m., earlier than his usual departure time. The neighborhood was quiet, with few cars on the road. When Michael started the engine, it made an unusual sound. Strange mechanical noises were leaking from the engine compartment. Looking at the dashboard, warning lights began to flash. The check engine light. However, Michael dismissed it as a malfunction. He couldn't imagine the car that had been fine until yesterday suddenly breaking down. He drove toward the Gainey Ranch exit. As he turned a gentle curve, white smoke began rising from the engine compartment. No way. When he pressed the accelerator, a metallic grinding sound echoed from the engine. Then suddenly, all the warning lights on the instrument panel lit up simultaneously. At that moment, flames burst from the engine compartment with a thunderous roar. "Oh God!" Sweat beaded on his hands gripping the steering wheel. Michael desperately hit the brakes, but the braking system had already failed. A fuel system leak was rapidly filling the car with black smoke. An explosion ripped through the quiet neighborhood. Neighbors rushed out of their houses in their pajamas. The car interior was quickly engulfed in flames, filling with unbearable heat and smoke. He grabbed the door handle, but the heat-warped mechanism wouldn't move. "Help!" His cry was lost in the black smoke. Just then, a delivery van happened to pass by. The driver, Tom Martin, immediately hit the brakes when he saw the burning car. Without hesitation, he approached the blazing vehicle, fire extinguisher in hand. However, the flames had already grown too large to control. Tom grabbed tools from his van and forcefully broke the rear window. Through the billowing black smoke, he could see Michael, who was beginning to lose consciousness. "Hang on!" Tom thrust his upper body into the flame-filled car, trying to pull Michael out. That's when the second explosion occurred. The blast threw both men several meters. Michael's clothes continued to burn, and he had suffered severe burns across his body. In the distance, sirens were wailing. Fire trucks and ambulances. "Mom, Dad's car." Eric's trembling voice. The sky visible through the window had an unnatural redness. Then her phone rang. "Mrs. Wilson. This is the Scottsdale Memorial Hospital Emergency Department. Your husband." The voice on the phone grew distant. Jennifer recalled the dream she had last night. In her dream, she had seen large flames. When the fire trucks arrived on scene, the RAV4 was completely engulfed in flames. The fire had spread to nearby trees, turning the green residential street into a scene from hell. Paramedics loaded the unconscious Michael into an ambulance. Severe burns covered more than 40% of his body. With likely airway burns as well, his life was in critical danger. Jennifer, who had rushed to the scene, nearly collapsed at the sight of her husband's transformed appearance. Eric gripped his mother's hand tightly and asked in a trembling voice. "Dad will be okay, right?" No one could immediately answer that question. The ambulance sirens wailed again as they headed to the hospital with Michael. By the time the sun had fully risen, all that remained at the scene was the blackened wreckage of the RAV4 and a lingering strange odor. That smell was somehow similar to the strange odor Eric had noticed the night before. In the car heading to the hospital, Jennifer remembered Linda's eerie smile from yesterday. At the Scottsdale Police Department's Major Incident Division, Detective Jim Connors studied photos of the RAV4 fire. 48 hours had passed since the accident. This is no ordinary accident. The veteran detective's intuition, backed by 20 years of experience, told him so. The initial report from the scene investigation team had noted several suspicious points. First, the residue collected from the engine compartment. Traces of chemicals not typically found in vehicle fires had been detected. The components suggested an industrial-strength acid. Forensics officer Sarah Chen entered with documents. The surveillance camera analysis is complete. Security camera footage from throughout the residential area. The day before the accident, footage captured a silver RAV4 heading toward the industrial district. The driver was a woman in a black mask and hat. We also checked nearby convenience store security cameras. The footage was clear. 3:15 p.m. the day before the accident. A masked woman purchasing something at an industrial supply store. The register records showed a purchase of industrial-strength acid. The purchaser's name is Linda Wilson, the victim's sister. Just then, a report came in from the hospital. Michael Wilson had temporarily regained consciousness. Detective Connors immediately headed to the hospital. In the ICU private room, Michael, his body completely wrapped in bandages, was barely able to speak. "My sister." His voice was filled with anguish at accepting an unbelievable truth. Meanwhile, Jennifer and Eric had been called to the police station for questioning. A female detective carefully took Eric's statement. "Eric, can you tell me more about the smell in the car?" Eric took a deep breath and began speaking slowly. "It smelled like the disinfectant Aunt Linda used. I'm sensitive to chemicals, so I noticed right away." The medical specialist corroborated Eric's testimony. His multiple chemical sensitivity was medically documented, and past medical records showed he was particularly sensitive to strong acidic substances. The investigation progressed rapidly. Security camera footage from the local industrial supply store. Linda's car's GPS records. And the decisive evidence found in bushes near the accident scene. An empty industrial acid container and used protective gloves. Fingerprints on the gloves matched Linda's. Chemical analysis showed the residue in the container matched the acid detected in the engine compartment. Confirm the suspect's whereabouts. Detective Connor's order set the investigation team in motion. Linda's apartment was empty. However, traces of her actions were found one after another. Computer search history included keywords like vehicle fire and engine destruction methods. smartphone GPS data showed she had visited the industrial district the day before the accident. The clincher was the delivery driver's dash cam. Tom Martin's vehicle was equipped with high-performance recording equipment. The footage clearly recorded liquid leaking from under the vehicle just before the accident. On the third night, Linda was apprehended at Phoenix Airport. She was attempting to flee to Canada when airport staff alerted police. In the interrogation room, Linda remained eerily calm. "I have my reasons." She began speaking dispassionately about her hatred for her sister-in-law who had ruined her life, betrayal by her brother, and above all, her destructive impulse toward their perfect family. Faced with the evidence, Linda admitted everything. On Wednesday afternoon, while Jennifer was away, she had used the car without permission. She had injected acid into the engine compartment and destroyed the timing control device. She even admitted to attempting to destroy evidence afterward. "I didn't mean to kill him. I just wanted to destroy that happy family." Her words sent chills through the interrogators. The prosecution immediately decided to charge her with attempted murder. Additional charges included breaking and entering, property damage, and destruction of evidence. At the hospital, Michael's condition was gradually stabilizing. While his burns would require long-term hospitalization, he was beginning to move past the critical stage. He seemed unable to accept the reality of the situation. Jennifer sat by his hospital bed, holding his hand, quietly accepting all the truth. Eric slept beside his father, his expression peaceful for the first time in a while. 1 week after the incident, at the Scottsdale Police Department press conference, Detective Connors explained the full details to the press. "This is an unforgivable crime that trampled on family trust." As camera flashes went off, the detective continued. "While respecting the privacy of the victim and his family, we refrain from sharing certain details, but we have resolved this case based on solid evidence." Outside the conference room, the strong early summer sun beat down. It seemed to herald the arrival of a new season in this city. However, the impact of this incident would leave deep scars on those involved. Especially for the brother who had continued to believe in his sister, the wounds in his heart would take longer to heal than his burns. Now that the truth was revealed, all that remained was the unanswerable question of why. 3 months after the accident, after a long hospital stay, Michael was finally approaching his discharge date. "Are you sure it's okay to leave the hospital now?" Jennifer worriedly peered at her husband's face. His once handsome features were gone, and doctors had said the burn scars from his right cheek to neck would never fully heal. "I'm fine now." Michael's voice was a bit raspier than before. However, his eyes showed strong determination. After rigorous rehabilitation with physical therapists, he could already manage most basic daily activities. "Dad, let's go to our new house soon." Eric stayed close to his father's wheelchair. After the accident, the Wilsons had decided to let go of their Gainey Ranch home, which held too many memories. They had purchased a new home in the more secluded Cave Creek area north of Scottsdale. The accident's impact on Eric's health had manifested in unexpected ways. He had actually improved. Having overcome such a nightmare experience, his mental strength had definitely increased. His asthma attacks were gradually becoming less frequent. The new house was specially designed with Eric's chemical sensitivity in mind. It was equipped with an air purification system, and all building materials were selected for their low reactivity. The spacious yard included room for the treehouse Eric had been dreaming of. A new car had already been delivered. This time they chose the latest model from a Scandinavian manufacturer known for its safety features. Eric smiled, saying, "This car doesn't have any strange smells." The support from the local community was heartening. People in the neighborhood who had heard about the accident brought meals and helped with Eric's transportation. The church community also warmly watched over their new life. However, not all wounds had healed. In the courthouse, the day of Linda's sentencing, Jennifer and Michael delivered their victim impact statements, speaking about their destroyed family bonds. "My sister tried to take everything from us." Michael's voice trembled. "But there's one thing she couldn't take: our bond." In court, Linda showed no signs of remorse until the end. "What I did was resistance against an unfair world." Her final statement was filled with twisted righteousness. The judge, wearing a stern expression, handed down a 20-year prison sentence. During his final visit with his sister, Michael left just one word: "Goodbye." It was a brother's words of farewell. Linda's life in prison was a battle with loneliness. Other inmates wouldn't accept someone who had endangered her own family. No one visited her, and her mental state gradually deteriorated. She wrote several letters of apology to her family, but they were all returned as undeliverable. The Wilsons had made the decision to completely cut ties with the past. One evening, as their new life was settling into a rhythm, Michael was playing catch with Eric in the backyard. Watching them, tears of happiness glistened in Jennifer's eyes. "Mom, Dad's throws are stronger than before." Eric's voice rang out in the garden. Michael smiled gently at his son. The burn scars were still there, certainly. But now, they had become proof of the trials they had overcome. "Let's all get dinner ready." Jennifer's voice calling to them melted into the evening air. The aroma of dinner wafted from the kitchen. A new day was beginning in their new home. It was a sure step forward, leaving behind the dark past and moving toward a hope-filled future. This incident had taken much from them. But it had also taught them something important. Family bonds are sometimes tested. But when you overcome those tests, those bonds become stronger and deeper. The Wilson family's story wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. In the gentle twilight, their smiles shone softly.